Right.
It allows me
Yeah,
to drive in the HOV lane.
that's perfect. Hey, for anyone who's just jumping into our stream, well, we got 0 followers here. Can we keep talking like no one's watching? No, it's recording, so we have to actually pretend to be professionals. It's Friday, the 16th of July. Good morning. Hope everyone is doing a great. Oh, 13 people jumped in. Wow, that was instantaneous. I am just pulling up this really big piece of information that I didn't prepare in advance for, and that is to let you know where the Vision Zero enforcement team is this morning and today, with a nice motorcycle picture if you're on Twitter. So today, the Vision Zero enforcement team are focusing on 23 Division and 41 Division. It's an all-day thing. They're augmenting the already good work done by the officers in that division. They're helping them reduce serious injury and death by focusing on the big four. That's speeding, aggressive driving, distracted driving, and impaired driving. And you know what? We're going to talk more about impaired driving in a little while because I am joined by Sergeant Jason Kraft and Scott Marshall, the safe driver. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, but one of the most important is it's the weekend, and impaired driving tends to be an issue over the weekend. We're going to talk about how many people were arrested last weekend, trying to give you sort of an idea of what you shouldn't be aiming to join forces with. So welcome, Sarge. Welcome, Scott. How's it going? How are you ready for the weekend?
Almost. It's getting close.
It's not close enough because it's the start, not the end of our day. But it is good, and there's no tornado warning for today, so that's positive.
That's right. And my thoughts are with the families in Barrie, Ontario, in particular, in Innisfil that were hit hardest regarding the weather that we had yesterday. So
we're very good. Imagine, right?
A very good friend of ours lost his roof yesterday. It is tragic what you're going through. Our thoughts are with you. We hope that you can get back to life and a regular routine as soon as possible. I know that there's people from all over who are coming to help out. It's fantastic that the community is coming together, but sorry that you're going through this. Now, getting on to stuff and things. So for those who don't know Scott, because that happens. I know it's rare. It's hard to believe even.
I don't believe it at all.
Well, let me hit this button and say that Scott Marshall, the safe driver, is on Twitter. He is are you a Twitter? Are you a tweeter?
I'm a tweeter.
But he's also a blogger, and as a blogger, you can get him on thesafedriver.ca. But a little bit about who you are and who you were before you were here, is that you used to be very involved in a television show that many people may be familiar with.
Yes, way back, 2005, the first season of Canada's Worst Driver on Discovery. I was on the show for 3 seasons as their head instructor and on-air judge. And it was a lot of fun. It was a blast. And you know what? They may be Canada's worst drivers, but they are really nice.
I hate to interrupt you 1 second. No, don't interrupt. Okay, I was going to see if the superintendent wanted to come by and say hello to everybody and put him on the spot. Hang on just 1 second.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so it was.
Here we go. We're back on camera now. I'll get out of your way if you want to put those.
Well, what do you want me to do?
You can say you got Jason. This is Scott Marshall. He is the safe driver. If you want to.
Wow.
No one's seen you yet.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Scott Baptist.
Hi, yes, everybody. I recognize your face because all bald people know each other.
Well, it's one of those things. Yeah.
It's in the memo, the monthly memos.
Wow. Yeah. There's a lot of shine, but like two of us.
Brandon can't come back. You know that. Right?
Mine's by choice. My hair. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
There's not as much choice here.
I used to have that 8-inch part in my hair. So,
wow. So what do you guys like? I've watched a couple of these. So like, what's the topic today? What are we hitting today?
Well, see, this kind of put Sean on the spot because Brandon does all that producer stuff, and I always have some topics. So I want to talk about one of my pet peeves, which is following distance, and we got to clean up the roads. And one of the big issues is a myth, a story, a fairy tale that drivers suddenly believe it's judged by car lengths. And it was told to you by your grandparents, who was told by their parents that you judge it by 2 car lengths, and it's not.
Should be what, 2 to 5 seconds?
Yeah, exactly. And the minimum being 2 in ideal conditions at city speed. And I'm going to write a blog post for next week about following distance. I might put it on my podcast as well, that people really kind of have to shape up and change and get facts, not myths, about what the following distance is. And when we see that, the driver ahead brakes hard and you brake barely in time, but you do nothing about the distance, then give your head a shake. If you barely stopped at 50K, what happens if the driver ahead brakes harder? And you're not going to be able to stop.
Well, especially when you see it on a highway. You look at something like the Gardner or the Don Valley Parkway.
Yeah.
And as people get closer and closer together and lots of things happen, someone makes a crazy lane change or something. Next thing you know, there's a touch of a brake, and as it backs up through the vehicles following, next thing you know, we've got a 4-vehicle crash, and
right.
Everyone's got their car all banged up. So
you're absolutely right. And I'm on the expressway every day on my commute to and from my office, and every day, there's crashes. And I listen to the traffic reports to help me plan my route on my way home. And you're always hearing about these crashes. And these are the types of crashes. You're not always going to get a side swipe. You're going to get rear crashes. You're going to get the multiple crashes, as you said, Scott. And it's something that we can all make a difference. And you're not going to be home any later. And if you are, it's 2 seconds. And what are you going to do for those 2 seconds?
And well,
go ahead, Jay.
I was going to touch on the fact that during the pandemic, a lot of people were staying at home and following orders, and that driving is a perishable skill, and that we're going to see more drivers on the road and that haven't been driving, and it's something to be cognizant about, that it is a perishable skill, and we're going to have to get back into it and be aware of that.
Well, it comes down to, it's such rude driving behavior. I mean, stand right on the bumper of the car ahead of you and aggressive and trying to push. It's like, it makes absolutely no sense. And we need the people of Toronto to slow down, create bigger, safer following distances, and make sure that they get from one place to another safely without causing collisions. I mean, it's a busy city, and we all have to interact together. So anyway, listen, gang, I got to run. I just wanted to pop in and see how you're doing. I love what you're doing. Keep it up, and I'll be on again. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
Have a nice weekend and week. I won't be here.
Thank you so much on the spot. See you again.
I put the superintendent on the spot in our earlier management meeting that we have every morning with all the leads, saying that I'm going to be on holidays next week. And the superintendent said, well, aren't you always on holidays because of your work ethic? I said, yes, but just don't tell my boss. But thanks for joining us, boss.
Apparently audio is not working. I guess we lost power. Hang on one second on the... Audio is working for you guys, but not for those guys. Because hang on one second.
All right.
Oh, it helps when you plug in the big cable. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Going back to business. They've been still no audio. Okay. Hopefully there's audio in about a few seconds. Sorry. This has been a very interesting show so far.
Definitely.
So I kind of want to continue this because it is a bit of a pet peeve is the following distance and yeah, it's one of the things that is judged by time, but let me explain why it's judged by time. It takes time for your brain to recognize or to get a message from your eyes that brake lights are on in front. There's a delay. And then your brain says to your foot, get off the gas and hit the brake. Then there's a delay from getting your foot to the brake pedal. That's all reaction time. Right? So there's the perception as well as the reaction, and then there's the stopping. If your vehicle's heavier than the one in front, it's going to take you longer to stop. If your tires are underinflated or poor, it's going to take you longer to stop. If your brakes are worse than the vehicle in front, it's going to take you longer to stop. If you're not pressing as hard as the driver in front, it's going to take you longer to stop. So it's naive, to say the least, that you can stop in these 2 car lengths. Not at expressway speeds, not even in the city if your car length are 2. And it was mentioned by Scott that the people who kind of weave in and out and cut out, I call them dream weavers. Not the song, but more of they're dreaming that they're not going to get clipped, that they're not going to rear end somebody else. And a question to anybody: let's say that you do rear end someone because you couldn't stop in time. The first words out of your mouth is, well, they hit their brakes. It's not their fault.
Right.
It's your fault. And then you've injured the person in the back seat. You've injured that 4-year-old child or that infant. You've damaged your car to a point where all the sensors are most of them are at the front of the vehicle. Now your vehicle's a write-off.
Mm-hmm.
Your insurance rates skyrocket.
Yep.
You've got to pay out your deductible. So, and you're charged with an at-fault collision, plus the points you're going to get on your insurance, on your driving record. It's a lose-lose situation. So judge it 1001, 1002, and you're good to go.
Right.
Josh Clark just threw a question in the kitty saying, what would you do if you witnessed someone brake checking another person? So I guess this is very different depending on who's answering the question. Scott, from your perspective, what do you do if someone is doing that? What do
if someone's ahead of me and for some reason that they're doing that and I look ahead, and one of the things is don't look just at the vehicle in front of you, look well ahead of you where you're going to be in the next 12 to 15 seconds in the city. And if you don't see a reason for the driver ahead to be braking, maybe change lanes if you can. Keep a better following distance. Maybe they thought you're too close, and because you still have to give yourself time to stop. Even if you're not purposely following close, you may have to do a second count just to verify. But change lanes, get rid of the person for whatever their mentality is as a driver. Who knows? And they might even be looking for an address or two-footing. Left foot on the brake, right foot on the gas.
Right. And to that point, Scott, like we never know what's going on, who's driving that vehicle, what their experience is, what kind of day they're having, what mechanical condition their vehicle is in. We have no control in regards to what that vehicle or driver is going to do. However, as an operator of our own vehicle, we have absolute control over that. And we can adjust our attitude, our demeanor, our speed, our lane position, all of those things we're in control of. And I'm getting better at it, where I will do a self-check and I'll be like, well, maybe he's having a bad day or she's having a bad day, and I'm not. So I'm going to slow down. I'm going to create some time and distance between us and let them go on with their day. And I'm going to hopefully get to where I need to go safely as well. So.
But if someone is brake checking, that behavior is worthy of stopping. So as a police officer, if I observe that, I'm going to stop the vehicle. I'm going to investigate, and that may lead to charges. At very least, that's careless. That could be dangerous if it resulted, depending on the severity. Tapping your brakes is one thing. Slamming on the brakes to create a collision is another. But this sort of segues into something that we talked about on our TikTok live stream this morning, and there are some people watching on the VoiceOver Cop channel on TikTok right now. And that is, what happens if someone's tailgating you as opposed to brake checking you? They're tailgating you. This was the question this morning. Do I just move over? What are my options?
Yeah, you do have a number of options, safe options, mature options. The first is when you realize that they are tailgating you. If it's a single lane in each direction, there's no place to change lanes, let them pass, increase your following distance. By having a bigger following distance, you're not forced to brake hard if the lead driver has to brake hard. You can brake more gradually. That's going to cause the driver behind more time to brake gradually as well. If you've got to brake hard, they're not going to have the time. They're going to hit. You're going to be that sandwich in between. You'll be an accordion. So that's the first option. The second is to use your mirror checks about every 3 to 5 seconds. Always constantly be aware of what they're doing. They might even be so close. And until you can find a spot to pull over, maybe it's onto the shoulder, put your hazards on, get onto the shoulder, let them pass you, let them do it to somebody else, not you, and then you're free. And don't tailgate them back.
Yeah, don't get into a whole road rage situation. But I really like that suggestion of pulling over, slowing down, getting out of the way, let them get by you. It's not worth getting into a competition of who gets there first or who owns the road. It's about being there safe and sound.
It becomes a distraction. We talk about distracted drivings with phones and stuff, but it's a mental distraction because your mind is now on Sparky behind you, not on the driving environment of what's coming up ahead of you. So
right, you get that tunnel vision mentality and view or lack of view during that road rage as well when it becomes
absolutely
road rage.
Yeah. It's at a point where I mentioned that I'm training some instructors right now that when you have a bad day, is it a bad day or is it a bad moment of your day? And it's a bad moment or two. Don't turn it into a day.
Right. For sure.
I'm not trying to ignore you, but I'm checking something. I want to check out what's going on here? Day, show me the day. Monday was the 12th. I'm just looking for the stats for the weekend arrest. There we go. Over the weekend, the Toronto police arrested 13 people for impaired operation offenses, which included a driver who was refused service at an LCBO, 2 drivers with prior impaired driving convictions, and a driver with almost 4 times the legal limit of alcohol. And I bring this up because we're going into the weekend. We're about to start recording a new, and I also saw an update from Scott Matthews, not to be confused with Scott Marshall, and his update was that overnight they arrested like 5 more people for impaired driving offenses. It's pretty wild. This is still happening, and the big thing and the segue here is today is the introduction of the stage 3 reopening in Ontario. So restaurants, bars are likely going to be open. And there may be yet an increase. People want to get out and enjoy a newfound sense of freedom. So, let's talk about impaired driving for a minute.
Yeah, first of all, there's no reason for it to happen. It's not like it happens on boom, there it is. It's stuff that you've planned, even on a short-term plan. You get a text message just before you leave work, hey, you want to meet me at the patio? Sure. Okay, now you've got to think, how am I going to get home? What do I do? Do I park my car? Do I then, Uber at home? Do I call for a ride? Whatever the case is, right? So it's just one of those things that you got to have a plan. You got to have a backup plan for your patio miss.
Sorry, we're not laughing at your response. It's the chat. Q in the chat has made a comment, and the giggles are happening. So.
Sorry, Scott. Apparently, I'm a heavy breather, according to the chat here, because they're saying Sarge's vitals are great, and then it just dawned on me. What are you guys talking about? Apparently, I'm breathing heavy on my mic, or I need to turn my mic volume down, and I apologize.
That's funny.
Okay, so let's get back onto the serious business. So yeah, we completely disrupted your flow, but
it's okay.
It's the whole. You mentioned it. It's the planning.
It is the planning. So even the short-term planning, there's a solution to not drive home, to Uber at home and park your car and come back the next day. Now, speaking of the next day doesn't necessarily mean that you're sober again. Depends on what you've had. So that hangover could still be an impairment. And there's a friend of mine that has breathalyzers. It's a company called Not Your Child Corp. They have individual breathalyzers that you can have. They're very inexpensive. They're, I think, $5, and you can blow into it and determine whether or not you should be driving, if that's the case. But the real case is you can use that the next morning. But if you're planning an activity and you're going to go into a restaurant, whatever the case is, either pace out your alcohol. And the myth of it's an hour per drink is still a myth. It's not. It really depends on your size, and the bigger you are, the more blood you have, and the alcohol is thinner in your blood system versus someone who's smaller, and it could affect them differently.
But I'll tell you, I'm not someone who drinks regularly. If I have 1 or 2 beers, I don't feel right. I don't feel comfortable getting behind the wheel of a car, and yet there are people who are far smaller than me that drink a great deal and think they're good to go.
Yeah, it's education really about, and I know that my kids have learned about this since they can since they were in school about the alcohol aspect, and there's that myth again that I'm good to go, or I'll take the back roads and stuff like that. Think of the outcome. Think of what happens afterwards, and it's not just a ticket. It's not just a fine. It's a criminal record.
Yeah,
a criminal record. So now that they're going to open up the borders in some point in August, and you want to go across, you can't. You might not even be able to get a job. You might even lose your job because you made a wrong choice. But it's a choice.
Absolutely. And I want to steer that choice, discussing something else that's near and dear to my heart, and tell you a little story about my drive home yesterday. As I was driving north, I picked up my kids from camp, and we're driving up to our next location, and there was a BMW, and the windows are all open, so I can see clearly inside. There's a baby seat right there, and the kid is happy-go-lucky. And as I got beside the passenger window in the front, is mom typing away, focused on the phone, and that's another choice. And Your face is suggesting that maybe you're just not impressed with this.
You know, you need a license to be a driver, but you don't have to have a license to be a parent. And apparently.
Well,
and yeah, sorry.
No.
It's, you know, you bang your head against the wall, which I've done. That's how all my hair fell out. And you kind of wonder. I mean, I think last week we had a question. It was a really good question that someone said that their dad refuses to get off the phone while he's driving. What do I do? And I suggested at that time to count out loud how long that they're focused on their phone. And if it was 5 seconds, which is the typical, let's, read a quick text message, then say, all right, Dad, now I want you to close your eyes and drive for the next 5 seconds with your eyes closed. And the chances are they'd say no.
Yeah.
Well, then that's exactly, if you're not looking out the windshield or the side windows and your mirrors at the driving environment, because your eyes and your mind is elsewhere, you're risking your life. Now you've got a kid in the back seat. They don't know any different. And then when they get to be 16, what have they seen their entire lives? That it's okay to text and drive.
Sure, you're creating a great lesson plan.
Yeah, I mean, being a role model as a parent is an important aspect in a parent's role, but it doesn't just end when you're at home. It continues when you're in the vehicle. And even how you act, you yell, you honk, you text, you drink and drive. It's like, oh, it's fine. I just, I'm careful with it. No, it's not fine.
To give you the play-by-play, I wasn't going to say anything because I had my kids in the car, and then I said, no, I have to say something. So I rolled down my window, and I got their attention, which took a couple of tries. Excuse me, pardon me. Hi there, Toronto Police here. And eventually they looked over, and they were shocked that someone was paying attention to what they were doing, because they were truly unaware of what was going on, even though they were moving with traffic, stop and go, because it'd been fairly slow at the time, but still moving, and they're still driving. There was no good, I'm sorry. There's no, I'll put it down. Like, the phone stayed in the hand for a period of time, until I suggested that if they really needed a reminder that we could pull over, we could wait for a car to come by and issue a ticket. But they insisted that they were okay. They were going to put it down.
I was stopped at a red light a while back, and to my left was a left turning lane. And while I'm waiting for the traffic, I'm using my mirror. I'm still looking around as a driver, and I look to the driver to my left, and they're on their cell phone, texting while they're sitting at a red light. And I guess they felt my glare, because they turned and looked at me, and all I did was this, and they put their phone down. Thing is that people know it's wrong, and I wrote a piece about texting while you're stopped. And some people think you're at a red light. What's the big harm?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the big harm is your mind is now on your text message. Your mind is not on the driving. And the moment you see something moving, whether it's a vehicle beside you or a pedestrian, you think it's okay to go. But the problem is that the driver to the right was moving because they can turn right on red. And then you see them move, and all of a sudden you hit the gas.
Oh, yeah.
You're going through the intersection on a red light. You could T-bone, or you could get T-boned. You get hurt or hurt somebody else, just because your mind was not fully involved on it.
That happens even with advanced lights. If you're in lane one next to you see a quick move, and suddenly you're rolling into an intersection, and it's a really uncomfortable situation for that driver who now stops and is stuck in the middle. But the truth is, they're not focused on the task at hand. They're not paying attention to what they need to do. And driving is a full-time thing. Someone made the comment, and I'd love to see your reaction. They said that driving is a mindless activity and is not something that requires concern or attention the way that we're making it out to be.
I would offer to pay for a bus pass to that individual. Because that is a mindless activity, sitting on a bus until you know it's your stop. But when you're behind the wheel, it's the lives around you. And people have been, you just take a look at stats, take a look at the news almost on a daily basis where there's a collision and people get hurt. And if financial you don't care about the financial aspect of your driving actions, think about the fact that you ruin other people's lives, or maybe even your own. And don't forget your family. If you get injured because of your mindless action. How does your family feel?
Yeah.
When you're laid up?
People, and my wife included, ask, why do I find myself speaking to, I'm off duty, why can't I turn it off? Why do I find myself compelled to speak to people about things that they're doing when I have an opportunity to? And it's because it's not just their child they're putting at risk, they're putting my children at risk, they're putting my family at risk, and the family of and friends and extended persons and the audience here. They're putting people who don't deserve any other unnecessary risk in their lives. So that's my motivation. I want to jump to a question that's come from Ashton. He named you Scott, so it's a Scott question. He's a volunteer firefighter, and he wants to know the best advice you can give for getting to the scene when both lane cars will not move over. Can I just go in the opposite lane to pass?
Going in an opposite lane is dangerous. Anywhere near an intersection is dangerous as well, and I think a lot of it is the fact that as a volunteer firefighter, if the community is not aware of the flashing light, if you have that light on your dash for a volunteer firefighter, you've got that green light, they may not be aware of it, and they don't know why you're behind them. And that's so unfortunate. What I do find is the less traveled roads are quicker than the main roads. And I use that here in my office to get to run errands, and I don't travel on the main roads because they're usually clogged. And so you can usually get to your destination by going on those less traveled routes, for one. Sean's going to talk. I can see.
Well, I was going to. I'm dying to say. First of all, I'm going to just acknowledge that we do have a question that came in through Twitter that I'll ask you in a second, or we'll talk about in a second. But to address the volunteer fire stuff, we get that you got somewhere to go. I props to volunteer firefighters. I really appreciate your service, and it's commendable what you do. I wanted to be one, but they don't have volunteer firefighters in Toronto. So. Your traffic light is not a traffic clearing light. Your green light, it doesn't require people to pull over and stop, but puts you in a predicament because when you are using emergency clearing lights, you're 100% responsible. So just to bring back your focus, guaranteed arrival is where it's at. We want to make sure you get to your destination, and it's better off that you take a few extra minutes to be there. You might miss the action, but you get there, and you're not going to create a need for additional stuff. And I know I'm preaching to the converted. You know this, but for everybody else who's watching, it's frustrating. But you're not in a police or a fire or ambulance vehicle, and the laws for traffic clearing don't apply. You'd be putting yourself at 100% risk, and it's not worth it. We want to make sure you get to where you have to go so you can help the people you're running to help. But I appreciate that there's a lot of pressure. And it's pressure for us, too, as police doing the same thing, and when we're in the appropriate vehicle with the appropriate lighting and siren and so on. But I want to jump for a second into a question that came in from TikTok, and that's, can you get a ticket if you don't have your license on you? Because you accidentally forgot it. And I know the answer, and there's a police answer for it, but what do you tell your students when you're teaching a student about the responsibilities of what you have to provide to police when asked and what could happen? How do you broach that? Because we get a lot of interesting questions on our TikTok streams about, in today's day and age with technology being what it is, how come you can't just look it up?
You have to have your document on you. That's bottom line. Your license, the ownership, and the insurance. And the thing of the insurance allowing the insurance slip to be an online document, which is great, but if your phone dies or you can't pull it up for whatever reason, you cannot show proof of insurance. So having all documents with you is still required by law, and that's it, bottom line. So.
Yeah, the Highway Traffic Act is very specific. It says that it says he or she, actually, it hasn't been updated to any other status, but that you must provide upon demand your driver's license, not a copy thereof, it's very specific. It's the actual card. And I'll tell you about why there's reasons for that. It talks about the motor vehicle permit. It says you can have the original or a copy, and a true copy at that. It has to be an actual copy of a valid, and it has to be both sides copied. The only thing that's recently been amended is insurance documents. And you mentioned that if your battery dies, your SOL, you need to be able to provide that proof, and you could be ticketed. So your documents don't have battery issues, but there's also security measures in those documents. It also allows us to very quickly verify to our satisfaction who you are, as opposed to having you write down everything about you in the last 5 years so we can go back to our computer and verify. You're going to actually create a longer scenario. We may or may not be happy with the results. And there are different pathways. A, you can get the ticket if you don't have it, but B, you can get arrested if we can't verify who you are. So your best option is always having it. And there was some feedback. The person who asked the question said, okay, yeah, you do, and fine, but can you but you can bring it to court. So, yeah, in the event that you get a ticket and you go to court to fight it and say, but I have it right here, they can choose to do what they want with it. The court has, we don't govern what they do. We write and document what happens on our side, and that's how you get to where you're going. But yeah, thank you for that. Let's see here. Bikes with sidecars allow just 2 riders, or can 3 ride if they have? Yeah, sidecars don't change the maximum number of people that can be on. We got some general questions coming in there that you don't get to see. Let's talk about the weekend. You're going on vacation next week.
Yeah, I've got a couple of weeks coming to me. Next week it's a staycation, just doing stuff around the house, trying to catch up a little bit.
Well, the reason I bring it up because first Brandon abandoned us, and now you're going to, and not for 1 week, but for 2.
I'm going to be on home
next week. I will take time away from my rest and relaxation to educate all you folks.
Wait. I can't say the same for myself. I may not have any cell service where I'm going to be next week. I'm going to go take my RV and go camping, and hopefully it'll be a safe trip, not like the last trip where I almost had a blowout with a tire. I had a goose egg on the side of my tire that was the size of a grapefruit, and thank goodness for the Good Samaritan in North Bay, Ontario, that knocked on my window at a red light and said, you need to go check your tire before you have a blowout, and we caught it just in time.
Good job.
So maybe we can. Maybe that's a great segue to tire pressure and proper tires.
Ooh, like where to get that information? Like possibly on the inside of the door, in addition to the sidewall of your tire, and make sure that your tires are cold when you're measuring. How many people actually measure the the pressure of a tire? Like, do you tell new driver? Well, I know you. But I'm not. I'm with you on that. I check on a regular basis. I don't do it every day. How frequently would you suggest?
Wintertime, you're going to lose more air pressure in the winter versus the summer, and hydrogen filled tires lose very little pressure. Oh. So and you could top off with regular air until you can get to your dealership. So yeah, in the summertime, at least once a month, just do a quick pressure check.
So Amanda says, do a 360 on a regular basis. And QQ says, a lot of cars now have tire pressure sensors. And this is a really good segue. Can you trust a tire pressure sensor?
So you got the tire pressure monitors, if you've got them in your vehicle, and it will give you a warning that it's come low. Usually it's only like 1 or 2 PSI. So they're actually a pretty good monitor on low pressure. When you do a walk around on a daily basis, anytime you get into your vehicle, before get in, always do a walk around. You never know what's going to be around your vehicle. And you can look for the underinflated, the obvious underinflated, but the ones that you're losing just a few pounds per square inch, you're not going to notice that with the naked eye. So you should be checking it with the tire pressure gauge. And even though I haven't had any malfunctions with my tire pressure monitor system, but I'll still use the tire pressure pen. More so in the winter, as I said, but not in the summer.
I'm not as much of a fan of the pen as I am the cool gauge. I like the one with the old analog gauge. I find those to be with the release valve. I like those.
I'm a digital guy. Yes, it's got to tell me an exact number, and I maybe OCD, but if it's not exactly for our RV 80 pounds per square inch PSI, then I'm like, no, it's got to be 80.0.
And if you like the kilopascals, you can use that too.
And there's a really cool what do you call it, a tiny pump that my buddy bought, and that you punch in how much air you want, it turns off automatically when you get there. That's cool. Now some folks in the chat are like, who's he talking to? Because all they see is me and hearing you, and who is talking? I'm talking to Scott Marshall, who is the Safe Driver. He's a podcaster. He's not a TikToker. He's a blogger, not a tick. He's not okay. Yeah, we're gonna stop beating him up about TikTok. But he is a former judge of Canada's Worst Driver, and you'd see him if you were on YouTube right now because he's on the show, Graham. And yeah, you can't hear him. You can hear him, but you can't see him. And we've also got Sergeant Jason Kraft of the Toronto Police Traffic Safety Programs Unit. He's the media relations officer. You could see him too if you were signed on there, but you're watching me here. But you can go over there. Okay. So
he's very crafty.
He's very crafty.
Yes, crafty with a K, like the cheese and not the art. And I have to mute myself when I'm not speaking because apparently I'm a heavy breather, QQ.
Well, it's good to know you're breathing.
Well, she does the wellness checks. That's what she's doing. Keeping us, because sometimes you can't tell. Just look anyway. There was a question of how many ride trucks do we have, or ride vans, and you know this is a kind of.
That's a very good question. Maybe I can answer that question for the viewer there, Sean. We do have in Toronto one designated mobile breath testing station. It's a RV, for lack of a better term of it. And we did an evaluation at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was decided through our wellness unit and the health professionals that it wasn't conducive for us to do mobile breath testing with our ride truck. During the pandemic. So anyone who's suspected to be impaired is arrested and taken to one of our stationary breath testing centers in Toronto. The short answer is we have one, and we're not using it.
One big one, and then the fact is ride can be done any different way. It doesn't have to be a truck involved, though. We can all be doing it outside in the cold or the hot. We've pivoted for the... for what's going on, you can see that Sarge is adjusting his mic based on the advice of Q there, who says you can put it under your chin and resolve all of this. What is this? Okay, I'm not even reading that. So just to let you know that you've got some people saying out. Yuck says hi, Scott. Moody says tell everybody I say hi. I have a comment that's I'm not going to repeat, but I will block that person because they don't like us. So they don't need to watch us. I don't know. Watching a live stream of
what's not to like?
Tell me about it. Listen, we've gone a little over. We had a lot of fun. We had a special guest who I put on the spot, and I'll probably hear about it later. But it's it's been a great show. Happy Friyay, as per usual. Love having you on. Thank you very much for spending time with us, Sarge. Thank you for all of those that are watching here on the talk. We do this Monday to Friday at 10:15 on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. If you're not following us there, you should. It's Toronto Police Traffic Services. We talk about traffic safety stuff and things in relation to the Ontario highway traffic because we are specifically in Ontario, Canada, in Toronto. But that said, we talk about things on this show that are relatable to anyone who uses the road. So if you are interested, tune in. Now, we also go live on our main channel on, I don't know where to look, so many cameras, on our main channel, Traffic Services on TikTok. That's Monday to Friday at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We don't have guests there. We have somebody in my ear, somebody in the office, and I answer your questions. But this is way cooler because Scott's here, at least on Fridays.
Scott, thank you very much. And you brought up a very good
point. And Amanda, you call me Scott. Come on. For Marshall.
I think your mic is too low now. We're not hearing you.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Hey, we hear you now.
Okay. Scott, thank you very much. And you brought up a valid point in regards to following distance and reaction time and whatnot. And it's a very good point. And we always need to be reminded that the more time we have, the more distance that we create, the safer we're all going to be.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a moment once again to plug my Reflective Brothers podcast and Twitter. Scott's the Safe Driver. You can get him on Twitter, where he is very, very active. You can get him there at Safe Driver, at Safe Driver. Scott's blog is www.thesafedriver.ca. And of course, we did talk about this. His podcast. We didn't give you enough time on the podcast today, but Scott's podcast comes out on Sundays. It's available anywhere that podcasts are downloadable, and they're downloadable, which means you can take it on the go and listen to it while you're driving. There's no visuals. You're not distracted. It's just good sound advice. They're about 15 minutes long, if I remember correctly. And
they are 15 or less.
15 or less. Right on. It's called Speed Bumps, the Safe Driving Podcast. I'm a subscriber. I listen once a week. You should too. There's 44 episodes.
Wow, you do listen. Yeah, 45's coming up this weekend.
40. Okay. Well, I look forward to it. Your vacation episode. We'll hear exactly what we heard. No, it'll just keep on going. It's good. It's good stuff. Very helpful. You have people all over the world. You told me that, is it Kenya that's listening to a lot?
So yeah, I have a lot of people from Kenya that they listen to the podcast. They go on my blog, and they follow me on Twitter. So there's some issues on road safety in a lot of different countries. They're one of them. Ours is another, and they really have a whole change of mentality. So they appreciate the advice that they've never really heard before. So
it's good advice. It's good for. It doesn't matter if you're a new driver, old driver. We talk about good. I'm already saying that. He talks about great things. We talk about great things. Everybody talks about great things. It's traffic safety. It's a shared responsibility. Thank you for coming to spend time with us. If you are not on Twitter, follow us at Traffic Services. We do stuff there. We talk about things. Our live stream is also available there. You can get us on Instagram at Traffic Services Toronto. You can get us on YouTube, where all of our, I don't even know how many episodes we've done of this, Toronto Police, or Traffic Services Toronto Police, I should say. You can look at all of our archives of posting. And of course, the place to be, TikTok. Our main channel there is Traffic Services. And, we never even got a chance to talk about our viral video with Scott. Did you happen to see us anywhere talking about speed enforcement?
Me?
Well, I'll send you a link. But for everyone else watching, some of you may have seen a video about traffic.
We were just kidding.
It was a
joke.
But it does. Okay, now that we've gone there, we put up a video where I had a little camera about that big, and Jason said that we were using it for speed enforcement. We're going to send everybody tickets, and somewhere in the vicinity of 500,000, maybe more people lost their minds because this was, a horrible thing. And the question really is, why were people upset about this? I mean, nobody speeds, right? Nobody exceeds the speed limit. Why would you ever worry about getting a ticket? Just saying. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Stay safe. If you're going to drive sober. And we'll be back on Monday. Different faces on the screen because some people are on vacation. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe.
All right.